Hi, welcome to this tutorial. So this is going to be a continuation of the previous tutorial where we looked at the different ways of declaring objects in JavaScript. So this is part 2. So it's again a complete guide to declaring objects in JavaScript. I'll be continuing on with some of the more advanced ways of doing the same. So far we've just looked at creating objects as an object literal, how to delete the objects, how to access the objects, and so on and so forth. Let's look at using the new keyword, the object constructor, and so on and so forth. Alrighty then, so to start with, what we're going to do is we are going to be using the new keyword, okay, and the object constructor to create an object. Alright, so now let's look at declaring objects with the new keyword and the object constructor. So it's as simple as specifying just the keyword. For example, let's say I have something called human, so this is going to be my object. I'll just have to specify new like this, followed by the object constructor. Alright, so this would create a new but empty. This is actually undefined or empty. Okay, it would create a new but empty object for you to play with. Let's just work on it right now. So once you've done this, right, we have an empty object, but this object does not have any properties or methods assigned to it. How do we do that? How do we get past that? Well, we have a method for that, of course. You know how that works. So you could just use the dot notation and you can assign values to your properties. Create properties like this and assign values to them. So I'll assign a bunch of values and create a bunch of properties. So the eye color is going to be blue, the hair color is going to be brown, and then we are going to have the height, which is, I think I'm going to make it 180 centimeters. I'm going to make this a string as well. And then we have the name, which is going to be John. Alright, so that's it. That's pretty much it. So using either the dot notation, just like we've done here, or by using the square brackets, which we looked at in the last tutorial, you can create new properties and assign them values. Now then you can access these values and you can display them or modify them in any way you want. Now all of those things are similar to what we've done before. So for example, if I have a console.log like this, I can say something like human.name. I'm using the template string. Alright, so I can say something like human.name is human.height centimeters tall. Then what else do you want to say? You can probably mention, their eye color and their hair color as well. So, and has human.eye, which means blue eyes, and human.hair, which would give us brown hair. That's it. Okay, you can create something like this, and if you look at the output right now, you would probably get something like, there you go. It says John is 180 centimeters. All right, so I added centimeters again. I would have to remove that because my string already has 180 centimeters. So it says John is 180 centimeters tall and has blue eyes and brown hair. It's perfect, right? So that's how you use the object constructor to create your objects and then properties within them. So it's similar to the object literal method, right? So just like with the object literal, you can create methods in here as well because it is similar to your object literal method. So for example, let's say you have an fname, which is for first name, and then you have human.lname like this, which says Smith, which indicates their last name. And then later on, you can create a full name in here, human.fullname, okay, which would be a method, so to speak, and you can use either the function or you can use the arrow function. Either of those things work, and just return a template variable of, so right now you have to say human dot because you can't exactly just say this when you're not inside of the object. So right now you have to say human dot, and similarly do the same for lname, which indicates the last name. So we're returning the full name like this. Alright, so you see how this works, right? So in here, in my console.log, all I have to do now is maybe I'll create another John's full name is, okay, so I'll create something that says human.fname. Alright, full name is. All right, and in here I'll call my human dot full name, which would actually return what I want returned, right? So I can do something like that. That would work exactly like I want it to work. If I look at the output, see, it says John's full name is John Smith. Perfect. So as usual, you can access the value of this newly created method by just calling it by using the human, which is the name of the object, right? So you might be wondering about the usage of square brackets. Well, it's similar actually. For the rest of it, the square brackets work exactly like I want it to work. So if I just go ahead and say within quotes, as you know, it has to be within quotes. If name, this should work exactly like I want it to work. But if I do the same for my full name, let's see what happens. So inside of here, I'll open a square bracket that says full name to indicate that I'd like to call the function. And if I look at the output right now, it says, see, John's working. John's actually just the property, which is working perfectly. It's actually retrieving the name as I want, the first name as I want. But the function hasn't been called, and I'm getting an undefined in here. All right, so for functions, for method calls, you're better off using your dot notation and not your square brackets. All right, so now it works perfectly. So that's one way of doing things. Now let's look at the next way of doing it. Now the next one is by using the new keyword with a function constructor. All right, in what we've seen before, we were only able to create one object at a time. So we created a single human object and we've assigned its properties and methods, because this entire thing, it just indicates one single human. But sometimes you want multiple human objects created, right? You have a template because they all have a different eye color, hair color, height, first name and last name. So you have a template, but you'd like to create different objects every single time. Alright, so what if you want to create thousands of human objects with the same properties and methods, right? You don't want to create the same exact line of code. So you can just go and do human 1, human 2 and so on and so forth, but you'd have to create this exact same lines of code multiple times, which is very, very redundant and it takes a lot of time, right? So that's where function constructors come in. So you have something called function constructors, which can be used to create user-defined functions, okay, function constructors. And these function constructors, they have their own common properties and methods, okay. So this one constructor will have all of the properties and methods for all the objects that you want to create, because they share the same properties and methods, right? So, and then what you can do is you can create new objects from these with the same properties and methods but different values. They can some property or method values can be the same, it doesn't matter, but generally it will have different values. Right, so each assignment will only require one single line of code because we are creating objects out of a template, which is our function constructor. Right, so let's look at how to do that. All right. So this is how you would do something like that. What I'm going to do is I'm going to remove everything in here so I can just show you the function constructor and how it would work. Alright, so you can use your arrow keyword for this as well, or you can just go like this. Alright, so generally you would create a name for your function, and unlike the normal functions, for your function constructor, you would generally, it's not a rule actually, but it's just to differentiate between a function and a function constructor. So just start it with a capital, alright, and inside of here you're going to receive all the properties as arguments, because every time you create a new object you are going to be sending these values. So I'll call this eye, hair, height. Alright, so these are the things that I want for every object that I create. So I'm just going to receive all of those things from my function call basically. Alright, so then I can just call by using this. This indicates, this indicates that I'm creating a property inside of this function constructor. Let's say it's equal to fname. Now this fname, the fname right here indicates the value I'm getting from right here. So I could I could actually name this and this completely different, but I'm just having it as the same name so I don't get confused later on when using them. But understand that this .fname actually refers to the property you're creating in your function constructor, but just fname refers to the argument value you're getting from your function call. Alright, so let's do the same for our last name, like this. I would be I, this dot hair would be hair, and this dot height would be height. And similarly, just like you've done before, you can create your arrow functions, or you can create methods as well. So this would just be this dot fname with a space and this dot lname like this, and that's it. Alright, so now we've created our function constructor, so we can now use that to create our objects. So basically what I would be doing is I'll just have to define and assign. For example, let's say I create a variable human1. Now this variable would generally have my object, right? But instead of doing that, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to create a new instance of my function constructor by using the new keywords. Just like we use new object like this, now we can use new human because my human is also an object constructor like this, right? So, and then just send the values that I need. Now set it in the same order you've specified in here. So the first one would be the first name, the second one would be the second name, the third one would be the eye color, I think. Alright, and then you have your brown, and then you have 180 centimeters like this, and I think that's pretty much it. So now you have, if I do a console.log of human1 right now, I would notice that I would get basically exactly what I need. See, this is the object that was created with this created as well. See, the method was applied to it as well. So you have the eye, the first name, the hair, the last name, the height, everything. And finally, you can actually do call human1.fullname to call the method as well. That would work as well. So if you look at the output right now, say it says John Smith because the method was called and this value was returned. Perfect. Alright, so that's how you create one object. And similarly, you can create any number of objects. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to copy the same thing. Alright, and I'm going to paste it here. And this is going to be human2. Or you can name this anything you want. That's completely up to you. And I'm going to name her Susan Smith. Her eye color is going to be green. And she's going to be a blonde. And then, or I'm going to make her hair color black. It's just something I like doing. And similarly, if I do the same, you would notice that I can print out human2 and access the full name of human2, which would get me exactly what I need. Of course, I should have changed her. Alright, let's make her 170 centimeters and not 180. Or I said it works perfectly. So like this, with just one line of code, by calling the human constructor that we created, you can create any number of objects, hundreds and thousands, even thousands of objects by just using one single line of code without having to use the object literals and just repeat the same thing over and over again. Alright, and you can access the properties as you can see here. You can access the entire object, you can access the methods, the properties, all of those things just like you would do before. Now, all of this is well and good, but in ES6, you have something called classes, just like you see in Java, C, and C++. It's similar to the function constructor that we have right here, but it's using the class keywords to mimic the object-oriented programming languages out there. So you can just do that as well. So instead in here, what you would do is you would just remove all of this. You would create a class, and inside of the class, you would have a constructor, just like you have in your normal OOPS languages. Alright, so you have a constructor right here, and all of this would be printed out within the constructor, and you can, without this, you can just create a method like you need. And everything else would be the same. If you look at the output right now, it's exactly the same because it works pretty much similar to your function constructor. Now, the only difference is you're using the class keyword and it's opening and closing the flower brackets directly. And while calling, you're sending these values, right? They're going directly to your constructor because the constructor is the first function that is run inside of your class. So every time you need a new property added, you need to use the constructor, and outside of it, outside of the constructor, you can have any number of methods you want as well that access the properties that you've just created right here. So it's as simple as that. So you can do something like that as well. Alright, so these are some of the advanced ways of creating objects, actually creating object templates, so you can create any number of objects from that as you want. So that's it for this particular tutorial. I really hope you liked it, and if you did, please like and subscribe, and please press on the bell button so you get notifications whenever I post videos. I post a lot of tutorials like this, and I also post courses, mini courses, beginner level courses for pretty much all of the popular programming languages, and I also post tutorials on creating projects, mini projects, medium-sized projects, and so on and so forth. So you'll have a lot of fun learning from me, so I really hope you subscribe. I'll see you on the other side. Thank you.